Once upon a sometime, there lived a girl. Very curious girl. Lots of hair too. And across the valley lived a boy who had slightly shorter but similarly unruly hair. Naturally, they navigated the area together, hunting for adventures and repeatedly almost not being late for things. The young man lived among the blacksmiths of the Eastern Buttress. Technically minded, their favorite pastime was winning arguments, followed closely by participating in arguments. These people were also tasked with guarding over the amphitheater, where they frequently made music together. Ancient music, from a time when music still mattered, as they would say. But unlike the argumentative nature of the people, this musical inclination rubbed off on the young boy and shaped the way he looked at the world. And while the elders were engaged in fierce debate over what the most efficient way would be to organize a cutlery drawer, the boy would slip out and spend his time dreaming, wondering about the colors of nature, the music of the birds, and generally keeping himself out of the way. Just across Champagne Valley, the girl lived in a village called Drakensberg. Now, Drakensberg was home to an eclectic bunch of wizards with enough cats to populate a small planet. They lived in crooked houses on a series of ridges that resembled a dragon's back. It also happened to be a dragon's back, but they hadn't yet discovered this fact. One day, she was tasked by her mother to take some fizzy water from Champagne Valley to her relatives living in Cathkin Park. And thus she set out onto the open road with no sense of direction and unpolished nails. Absent-mindedly descending the hill, she suddenly fell into a big black hole. Unbeknownst to her, it was in fact the dragon's left nostril. Now at this point the dragon was still having a rather pleasant dream, but the girl's bottle uncorked and the fizzy water leaked out. To the dragon it felt like a million scurrying mongooses had been released into its nose. So thunderous was his growl and vigorous his headbang that he accidentally launched his heavy metal career and got signed by a corporate vulture who happened to fly by. But then came the monumental reptilian sneeze, launching the girl across the valley and into the next chapter of her journey. She fell into a forest where no one could hear her getting lost, and by no feat of her own, she stumbled upon an imposing monastery in the middle of the woods. So she decided to stay there because, well, it beats being lost. This monastery was aptly named Monk's Cowl, as it was known for housing numerous monks behind its stony walls. These monks were a studious bunch. Very studious. So studious, in fact, that a few hundred of them could be spotted every night attending an evening class at the local tavern, where they got knowledgeable in the fine art of potion making and consumption. Just so happened to be the best song in the world. It was the best song in the world. Look into my eyes and it's easy to see what I want. While the girl was studying the art of thinking about things, the boy had to keep himself busy somehow, when a distant noise caught his attention. And he was lured out into the night by a deep and ominous rumble that shook the earth and caused some distress among the elders. So he befriended the mysterious creatures of the night that only allowed themselves to be seen in the dim lighting conditions of a dark, unventilated cave with sticky floors. But the boy's only wish was to reproduce the otherworldly rumble that led him there in the first place. So after gaining their trust, he was entrusted to play the infamous organ pipes, and he could finally unleash the hellish racket that first enchanted his ears from afar. These feasts of noise would often go on for hours, night after night, sometimes seeming to be exact repetitions of the previous night. But thanks to the sheer sensory saturation and some suspicious potions, the audience never seemed to mind, or notice, or change clothes. The girl from Cathkin Park sometimes came along to witness the sonic onslaught of the organ pipes. While the racket was too much to bear for most villagers, she stuck it out, and maybe even enjoyed it a little, listening to the yelling and the growling from the boy and his pipes, even though the words were... well, who knows what the words were? After some time studying various things about all sorts of things, the girl decided it was time to set sail. She was feeling rather lost in the monastery that had kept her not lost for a good period of time. So she decided to join an order of shiny, immortal, elvish-looking folk who spoke in strange tongues about higher powers, magic, and miracles. They were fishers of men and harvesters of souls, as they would say, and all guided by one unchanging, all-encompassing deity who kept their boats safe through the most tumultuous of storms. The boy, struggling to adjust to life outside the cave, stubbornly decided that the sailing hippie elves with their guiding lights were entirely wrong, and that the correct way to deal with problems was to rise above it, to ascend the face of adversity, and thus to proclaim yourself as the victor. And if the proverbial mountain you're climbing is too tall, you can always find a physical one to climb in its stead. In doing so, you will find that any problem can be digested in a logical manner, leading you to master your own independent, victorious reality. But I guess some problems require some physical as well as metaphorical climbing to conquer. But the point is that they can be conquered, for the human spirit is invincible, and self-determination is the only key to victory. Okay, so maybe the trick is climbing a mountain over time, step by step? Right? Right? Slow and steady wins the race. The tortoise beat the hare. An elephant is built from the foundation to the tip. A pyramid, I mean. And the elephant is eaten bite by bite. See? Surely, with sufficient determination, the summit is revealed! Okay, I need help. Get me those hippie elves, please! As her time on the ship came to an end, the girl accidentally stumbled into manual labor, grinding corn all day and grinding corn all night. She never stopped grinding corn. Sometimes she would be afforded a 30-minute nap or a quick snack, but other than that, she had to keep, well, grinding corn. There was no life outside it, really. The old lady in charge was never satisfied with the way she and her fellow workers ground corn. More contrast! Make the corn bigger! Make it pop! Craft! More lidding! Tighter corning! The girl was left somewhat disillusioned with the urgency of mass production and finicky clients, and found herself with a constant, deep-seated yearning for that weight of eternity and purpose that she last felt back on the ship. Meanwhile, inspired by the teachings of the elves, the young man got tired of being the village vagabond. He liked rebelling, but he felt he was conforming to people's expectations of him as the village rebel. So he decided to rebel against his rebellion and left for the stone-clad chambers of Giant's Castle, where intelligent and keen-eyed beings crafted the most beautiful buildings. They spoke of proportion, balance, typology, solid void relationships, and phenomenological systems integration, along with many further concepts that nobody actually understood. While this environment did satisfy his inherent stubbornness and love for the harmony of nature, he still longed to build something more, something that carried permanence, beauty, and meaning, unlike a dull white office block in Route 21 Corporate Park. Looking for a way to quench his thirst for permanence and beauty, he headed up the mountain to the old chapel at Cathedral Peak, where he found the girl. He thought it odd that she would be hanging around a chapel in her free time, but unbeknownst to him, she was actually just looking for the same sense of permanence and beauty that he was seeking. "I'm parched," he finally utters. She happened to have some sparkling water from the valley and offered him a sip. Quite good," he remarked, making a mental note to leave an honest and needlessly thorough online review a little later. Encouraged by his product endorsement, she also took a sip. And in that moment, they became pertinently aware of the dreamy, bubblingly optimistic, head-scrambling kind of feeling once again. "Oh dear," she exclaims. "Bugger me," he retorts. There was nothing for it. They could not undo the ancient magic of falling in love. Perhaps it was the journey that they had shared, and the way that their lives were sculpted not only in parallel but by each other through a richness of experiences that they had shared over the past decade. Or perhaps it was the fizzy water, but they vowed to marry each other in this very chapel, overlooked by the mighty peaks that proclaim the glory of creation.